The morning sun painted the research station's white walls in shades of gold as Dr. Sarah Chun stepped out onto the observation deck. At 24, she was the youngest xenobiologist ever assigned to the Kepler 442b colony, but her brilliant mind had earned her a place among the stars. The alien world stretched before her, its purple vegetation swaying in the gentle breeze while 3 moons hung like pearls in the lavender sky. Sarah had been studying the native plant life for 6 months now, documenting species that could revolutionize agriculture back on Earth. Her discoveries were already changing how humans understood plant biology. The local flora seemed to communicate through underground networks, sharing nutrients and information in ways that made Earth's forests look primitive by comparison. "Another beautiful day in paradise," she whispered to herself, adjusting the scanner on her belt. Today's mission would take her to the Northern Highlands, where energy readings suggested the presence of something extraordinary. The orbital surveys had detected unusual electromagnetic signatures, and Sarah suspected she might have found a new form of plant consciousness. The colony of New Geneva housed barely 3,000 souls, mostly scientists and their families. It was humanity's first attempt at peaceful coexistence with an inhabited world. The native Zephyrians were a graceful species, tall and willowy with silver skin that seemed to shimmer in their planet's light. They had welcomed humans with curiosity rather than hostility, sharing their knowledge freely and learning eagerly about Earth's culture in return. Sarah's research partner, Dr. Marcus Webb, was already loading equipment into their hover vehicle when she arrived at the garage. The bearded geologist grinned at her enthusiasm. "Ready to make history again, Sarah? Your plant network theory is already causing a stir back home. The agricultural committees are practically drooling over your reports." As they flew toward the highlands, Sarah felt that familiar thrill of discovery. The scanner readings were growing stronger with each kilometer. Whatever lay ahead could change everything humans knew about biological intelligence. She had no way of knowing that other eyes were watching their journey, eyes that belonged to beings who viewed human expansion with growing alarm. High above the planet's atmosphere, a sleek vessel maintained its position in the shadow of the largest moon. The ship bore no markings, its hull absorbing rather than reflecting light. Inside, General Vex of the Hegemony Council studied tactical displays with cold satisfaction. The human colony represented exactly what the Council had feared when Earth species first reached for the stars. "Their expansion continues unchecked," Vex reported to the holographic figures of his superiors. "This colony alone has grown 40% in the last standard year. Our projections show human presence in 12 systems within a generation if this pattern continues." The Council's response was swift and decisive. Humanity had been classified as a Class 7 expansion threat, a designation reserved for species showing dangerous potential for rapid growth and technological advancement. The standing orders for such classifications were clear: containment through demonstration of overwhelming force, followed by systematic reduction of expansion capabilities. "The human scientific teams show particular promise," another council member noted. "Their adaptability and innovation exceed our initial assessments. We recommend surgical strikes against their most valuable research assets to maximize psychological impact while minimizing Zephyrian casualties." Vex's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. The humans would learn their place in the galactic order. Target the research station. Begin with their most promising scientists. Make it appear as though local wildlife was responsible. On the planet's surface, Sarah's team had reached the source of the electromagnetic readings. What they found defied explanation. In a clearing surrounded by the planet's characteristic purple trees stood a grove of crystalline formations, each one pulsing with soft light in perfect synchronization. The readings suggested these weren't plants at all, but some form of hybrid biological mineral intelligence. "Marcus, are you seeing this?" Sarah's voice carried pure wonder as she approached the nearest crystal. Its surface was warm to the touch, and she could swear she felt a gentle vibration like a heartbeat. This could be the missing link between organic and inorganic consciousness. We might be looking at a completely new form of life. The discovery consumed her attention so completely that she never noticed the shadow passing overhead. The attack came without warning, a precisely targeted energy pulse that struck with surgical accuracy. The explosion was small, controlled, designed to look like an accident caused by unstable alien technology. Marcus was thrown clear by the blast, his survival ensuring there would be a witness to tell the story. When the smoke cleared, Sarah Chun, humanity's brightest young mind, was gone. In her place lay only scattered research equipment and a crater that would soon be overgrown by the planet's eager vegetation. The official investigation would conclude that Dr. Chun had triggered some unknown defensive mechanism in the alien crystal formations. A tragic accident in humanity's ongoing exploration of the cosmos. The crystalline grove had been destroyed in the blast, leaving no evidence of its true nature or the weapon that had actually caused the explosion. But Marcus Webb knew what he had seen. In a moment before the blast, his enhanced vision implants had recorded something the investigators missed: the brief flicker of a ship's shadow against the crystal grove. He said nothing during the hearings, sensing somehow that Sarah's death was part of something larger and more dangerous than anyone suspected. News of Dr. Chen's death reached Earth through official channels within hours. To the general public, it was another unfortunate reminder of the dangers inherent in space exploration. Scientists mourned a brilliant mind cut short, while her family grieved a daughter who had always reached for the stars. But in certain shadowed facilities hidden beneath mountains and ocean floors, Sarah Chen's death triggered responses that the Hegemony Council could never have anticipated. Emergency protocols activated in installations that officially didn't exist. Personnel who had spent decades waiting in the shadows suddenly found their services required. Admiral Catherine Reeves had been expecting this call for 30 years. As she entered the secure briefing room buried 3 kilometers beneath the Rocky Mountains, her weathered face showed no emotion. The walls displayed star charts and tactical assessments that painted a sobering picture of humanity's position in a hostile galaxy. The Kepler incident confirms our worst fears, reported Director Harrison from the Office of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. The attack profile matches Hegemony Council protocols for expansion containment. They're testing our responses while maintaining plausible deniability. Admiral Reeves studied the tactical analysis with the eye of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. How certain are we that it was deliberate? Webb's implant data shows clear evidence of a cloaked vessel. The energy signature matches known hegemony technology. They wanted us to know it was them, while keeping the colonies in the dark. Harrison's voice carried barely controlled anger. They killed Sarah Chun to send a message: stay in your designated systems or face consequences. The Admiral nodded slowly. For 3 decades, a select few in Earth's government had suspected that humanity's expansion into space was being monitored and potentially threatened by older galactic civilizations. Project Deep Shield had been humanity's insurance policy, a secret fleet built in the shadows while the public focused on peaceful exploration and colonization. Signal all Deep Shield facilities, Admiral Reeves commanded. Phase 1 protocols are now in effect. It's time the galaxy learned what happens when you threaten human civilians. In shipyards hidden in asteroid fields and hollow moons, construction lights began blazing around vessels that incorporated technology decades ahead of anything in the public fleet. Ships powered by quantum reactors and armed with weapons that existed only in theoretical papers began their final preparations for deployment. The Hegemony Council had made a critical error in their assessment of human nature. They had seen rapid expansion and technological advancement, but they had missed something fundamental about the species they had chosen to threaten. Humans didn't just explore and colonize. They prepared for war even while working for peace. Sarah Chen's death would not be forgotten or forgiven. Her research into biological intelligence had been just one thread in a vast tapestry of human scientific achievement. The galaxy was about to discover that Earth's true capabilities had been carefully hidden behind a facade of peaceful exploration. As emergency signals raced toward distant star systems, Sarah's family received the official notification of her death. Her parents wept for their brilliant daughter who had died so far from home. Her younger brother, Lieutenant Commander David Chun of the Colonial Defense Force, felt something different. A cold rage that would soon find an outlet the Hegemony Council could never have imagined. The chess game between Earth and the Hegemony was about to begin, triggered by the death of one brilliant young scientist who had only wanted to understand the wonders of alien life. But, as Admiral Reeves had learned long ago, sometimes peace could only be preserved through the promise of terrible retribution. In the depths of space, hidden weapons began powering up for the first time, while on Earth, families like the Chins mourned their losses and wondered if the stars would ever again seem as bright and welcoming as they once had. The age of innocent exploration was ending, replaced by something harder and infinitely more dangerous. The secure briefing room aboard Earth Station Alpha hummed with barely contained tension as Admiral Reeves addressed the gathered officers. These were not the familiar faces of the Colonial Defense Force, but shadow operatives who had trained for decades without anyone knowing they existed. Their uniforms bore no insignia, their names appeared on no public records, and their ships were ghosts in the official databases. Ladies and gentlemen, the war we've been preparing for has begun, Reeves announced, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. The Hegemony Council has moved from surveillance to active aggression. Dr. Sarachen's murder was their opening move in what they believe will be a swift demonstration of human limitations. Captain Torres, commander of the stealth corvette Nightfall, leaned forward in his chair. Admiral, our intelligence suggests the Hegemony has been monitoring human colonies for at least 5 years. Why strike now? What changed? The holographic display shifted to show colony growth projections, technological advancement curves, and resource extraction rates. The data painted a picture of human expansion that was accelerating beyond all previous models. They're afraid. Director Harrison interjected from his position at the tactical console. Our growth rate exceeds anything they've seen before. Sarah's discoveries on Kepler. 442b with a final straw. Admiral Reeves nodded grimly. Dr. Chin's research into plant consciousness networks wasn't just academic curiosity. The agricultural applications alone could have doubled food production across all human colonies within 10 years. That level of growth capability made us a Class 7 threat in their assessment matrices. The room erupted in quiet discussions as the implications sank in. Class 7 designation meant the Hegemony viewed humanity as an existential threat to galactic stability. It wasn't about territorial disputes or resource competition. They were trying to prevent human civilization from reaching its full potential. Commander Sarah Blake of the Intelligence Division stepped forward with a grim expression. Our deep cover assets in Hegemony Space Report increased military activity across 17 sectors. They're not just planning to contain us. They're preparing for systematic suppression of all human colonies outside the Sol system. The weight of revelation settled over the assembled officers. Humanity's peaceful expansion had been a facade of tolerance, allowed to continue only until it reached arbitrary limits set by alien overlords. The message was clear: accept your designated place in the galactic order or face extinction. How many ships do we have operational? Admiral Reeves asked the question everyone was thinking. 47 vessels across all classes, reported Fleet Coordinator Wilson from his position at the deployment board. 12 heavy cruisers, 24 frigates, 11 support vessels, all equipped with quantum shielding and kinetic barriers. The Hegemony's energy weapons should prove ineffective against our primary fleet. The numbers were impressive, but everyone in the room understood the reality. The Hegemony Council controlled hundreds of worlds and thousands of warships. Humanity's secret fleet had been designed for surgical strikes and defensive actions, not prolonged warfare against a galactic superpower. Our advantage lies not in numbers, but in technology they don't know exists, Admiral Reeves continued. For 30 years, we've developed weapons and defensive systems based on theoretical physics they consider impossible. The quantum displacement drives alone give us tactical capabilities they can't counter. Captain Torres studied the tactical displays with growing excitement. The human ships could literally phase out of normal space-time for brief periods, becoming untouchable while repositioning for devastating attacks. It was technology that pushed the boundaries of known physics, developed in secret laboratories by scientists who officially didn't exist. Meanwhile, on the colony world of New Geneva, Marcus Webb struggled with the weight of what he had witnessed. The official investigation had concluded within days, but the questions haunted him. Why had the energy readings spiked moments before Sarah's death? Why had the crystalline formations been completely obliterated when they should have been resistant to explosive damage? The answer came in an encrypted message from an anonymous source. Dr. Webb, your friend's death was not an accident. Meet me at the old mining facility outside Sector 7 at midnight if you want to know the truth. Marcus arrived at the abandoned site with scientific curiosity warring against survival instincts. The mining facility had been closed for years after depleting the local ore deposits, leaving behind a maze of empty tunnels and rusted equipment. In the depths of the main shaft, he found someone he never expected, Colonel David Chun, Sarah's younger brother. You saw the ship, David stated without preamble. Your implant data shows the shadow pattern, doesn't it? The military officer's face was hard with controlled rage, but his eyes showed the grief of a brother seeking justice. Marcus nodded slowly. The blast pattern was all wrong for an accidental detonation, and the energy signature didn't match any known alien technology on this world. But how do you know about my implant recordings? Those are classified. Because I work for people who don't officially exist, David replied. My sister's death triggered protocols that have been in place since before either of us was born. Earth has been preparing for this war longer than you might imagine. The revelation hit Marcus like a physical blow. Bah? David, what are you talking about? The Zephyrians have been nothing but friendly. The galactic community welcomed us. The Zephyrians, yes. But there are older powers in the galaxy who view human expansion as a threat to their control. David's voice carried bitter knowledge. My sister died because her research proved humans were adapting too quickly to alien environments. Her plant consciousness discoveries could have revolutionized agriculture across every human world. Marcus felt the pieces clicking together in his mind. They killed her to send a message. Slow down or face consequences. Exactly. But they underestimated human nature. We don't respond well to threats. David activated a portable holoprojector, displaying star charts that showed the true scope of human presence in space. What you see here are the public colonies, the ones everyone knows about. But there are others, hidden installations and facilities that serve a different purpose. The scope of the secret infrastructure was staggering. Shipyards in asteroid fields, research stations in uninhabitable systems, weapons testing facilities in the void between stars. Humanity had been building a shadow civilization parallel to its public expansion. We call it Deep Shield, David continued. 30 years of preparation for the day when our peaceful expansion triggered a hostile response. Sarah's death was that trigger. Back in space, the first phase of Operation Deep Strike was already underway. 3 hegemony patrol vessels conducting routine surveillance near the Centauri system suddenly found themselves facing an impossible situation. Ships appeared from nowhere, bypassed their shields with weapons that shouldn't exist, and destroyed their propulsion systems before vanishing back into the void. General Vex received the reports with growing unease. How was this possible? Our sensor networks detected no human military vessels in those sectors. Their colonial defense force lacks the technology to penetrate our scanning arrays. The answer came in the form of sensor recordings that defied explanation. The attacking ships had somehow existed outside normal space-time during their approach, becoming detectable only in the moments of actual combat. The weapons' signatures showed energy patterns that violated known physics, while the ship designs incorporated materials that shouldn't exist. Sir, reported his tactical officer, intelligence suggests these weren't colonial defense force vessels. The technology levels are decades beyond anything we've observed from human military development. The implications were staggering. If humanity possessed advanced military capabilities that had remained hidden for decades, then the hegemony's assessment of human technological development was fundamentally flawed. Class 7 designation assumed technological parity with galactic standards. These attacks suggested something far more dangerous. On Earth, Admiral Reeves monitored the first strike reports with satisfaction. The hegemony patrol vessels had been left crippled, but intact, their crews alive to report what they had witnessed. The message was clear. Human technology was more advanced than anyone suspected, and Earth was prepared to use it. Phase 2 is authorized, she announced to her command staff. Begin surveillance disruption across all hegemony monitoring stations in human space. Let them know their eyes and ears have been compromised. Across 17 star systems, hegemony surveillance installations began experiencing cascade failures as their quantum communication networks were infiltrated by viruses that existed in theoretical dimensions. The technology was beyond anything the Council scientists had conceived, turning their own monitoring systems against them. Dr. Chen's death had awakened something in humanity that the Hegemony Council was only beginning to understand. Earth species didn't just adapt to threats, they innovated beyond them. The galaxy was about to discover that human ingenuity, when properly motivated, could achieve the impossible. In the hidden depths of asteroid mining facilities, production lines hummed with increased activity. Every ship destroyed or damaged by hegemony forces would be replaced by 2 more. Every surveillance station compromised would be followed by deeper infiltration of alien networks. The war had begun, but Earth intended to dictate its terms. Marcus Webb returned to his research station with new purpose. His official reports would continue documenting the planet's alien biology, but his real work now involved something far more crucial. The plant consciousness networks that Sarah had discovered weren't just scientifically interesting. They were potential weapons in humanity's growing arsenal of impossible technologies. As the 3 moons of Kepler, 442b, rose over the research facility, Marcus began the work that would make Sarah's sacrifice meaningful. The galaxy had taken Earth's brightest daughter. Now it would learn the price of that mistake. The secret fleet was mobilizing, but the real war would be won by human minds that refused to accept limitations imposed by alien overlords. The war room beneath Geneva Station pulsed with holographic displays showing the rapidly evolving tactical situation across human space. Admiral Reeves studied the data streams with the focused intensity of a predator analyzing prey. 3 weeks had passed since the opening strikes, and the hegemony's response was both predictable and deeply concerning. They're massing fleet elements in the Arcturus sector, reported Captain Torres, his fingers dancing across tactical interfaces. Intelligence estimates over 300 warships converging on staging areas just outside our territorial boundaries. They're preparing for something big. The implications were clear to everyone in the room. The Hegemony Council had moved beyond surgical strikes and demonstration attacks. They were preparing for systematic conquest of human colonies, starting with the most vulnerable outposts and working inward toward Earth itself. Commander Blake stepped forward with fresh intelligence reports from deep cover assets. Our sources in hegemony space confirm the worst-case scenario. They've declared humanity a galactic infection requiring immediate cauterization. The orders went out to all sector fleets. Destroy all human presence outside the Sol system. Admiral Reeves felt the weight of command settling on her shoulders like a lead blanket. She had hoped the initial strikes would convince the hegemony to negotiate rather than escalate. Instead, they had chosen to double down on their original assessment. Humanity was to be reduced to a single system species, trapped forever within sight of their birth world. "Ma'am," interrupted Tactical Officer Harrison, "we're receiving priority signals from the Darwin system. Colony ship New Horizon is reporting unidentified vessels on intercept course. ETA 12 hours to contact." The Darwin colony represented everything beautiful about human expansion. 50,000 civilians had spent 8 years building a thriving agricultural world that fed 6 other systems. Families had put down roots, children had been born under alien stars, and scientists had made discoveries that expanded human understanding of biology and physics. Now it was about to become a battleground. Deployment orders? Captain Torres asked, his hand already moving toward the fleet coordination panel. Admiral Reeves stared at the tactical display, weighing options that all seemed to lead toward escalation. The secret fleet had been designed for hit-and-run operations, not defending fixed colonies against overwhelming force. But sometimes command meant making impossible choices. Signaled Battle Group 7, she decided. Full quantum displacement to Darwin system. Rules of engagement. Protect civilians at all costs. She paused, knowing the next words would change everything. And transmit Package Alpha to all Deep Shield assets. It's time the galaxy saw what human ingenuity really looks like. Package Alpha was the culmination of 30 years of theoretical weapons research. Technologies that pushed physics to its breaking point, engineered by scientists who had been told repeatedly that their ideas were impossible. Now humanity would discover whether impossible was simply another word for undiscovered. On the colony world of New Geneva, Marcus Webb had made discoveries that would have thrilled Sarah Chun beyond measure. The plant consciousness networks she had died studying were far more sophisticated than anyone had realized. They weren't just communication systems. They were living quantum computers capable of processing information at speeds that made human artificial intelligence look primitive. David, you need to see this. Marcus transmitted to Colonel Chun through their encrypted channel. I've been working with the native Zephyrians to map the full extent of the biological networks. What we're looking at isn't just planet-wide, it's system-wide. The implications staggered both men as they studied Marcus's data. The crystalline formations that had attracted Sarah's attention were nodes in a vast biological computer network that extended through space itself, using quantum entanglement between organic molecules to communicate across light years instantly. Marcus, are you saying the entire Kepler system is essentially one giant living computer? Not just living, Marcus replied with excitement that would have made his dead colleague proud. It's conscious. The whole system has been aware of us since we arrived, and it's been learning. The revelation transformed their understanding of everything that had happened. Sarah's death hadn't been caused by triggering some defensive mechanism. She had been murdered while making contact with a form of intelligence that spanned solar systems. The Hegemony Council had killed her to prevent humans from forming an alliance with beings who could revolutionize galactic civilization. Meanwhile, the battle for Darwin's system was about to begin. Hegemony Battle Fleet Gamma dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, 300 warships arranged in the classic conquest pattern designed to overwhelm any possible defense. Admiral Karoth had led similar operations against 17 different species over his long career. Humans would be no different from the others. Scanned for defensive installations, he ordered his tactical staff. Standard suppression pattern alpha. Destroy all military assets first, then begin civilian evacuation protocols. The scanner returns confused as bridge crew. Instead of the expected orbital platforms and patrol craft, they found empty space surrounding the blue-green world. A handful of civilian vessels moved in standard traffic patterns, showing no sign of military preparation or panic. It was as if the colonists didn't know they were about to be conquered. "Sir, we're detecting quantum displacement signatures throughout the system," reported his sensor operator. Multiple contacts appearing everywhere. What materialized around the Hegemony fleet defied their understanding of tactical deployment. Ships appeared from dimensional phase space in perfect formation, surrounding the invading force in a sphere of overlapping fields of fire. The human vessels were smaller than expected, but their energy signatures suggested power levels that shouldn't be possible for ships of their size. Admiral Karoth stared at the tactical display with growing unease. "How many ships?" 57 confirmed contacts, sir, all showing identical energy patterns. Sir, they're using quantum displacement drives for tactical maneuvering. Our targeting systems can't lock onto them." The human fleet commander opened communications on standard frequencies. Captain Elena Vasquez of the UES Prometheus appeared on the main screen, her expression calm despite being outnumbered 6-1. "Admiral Karoth, you are in violation of interstellar law and human territorial sovereignty. Withdraw your fleet immediately or face the consequences." Karotha's mandibles clicked with amusement. "Captain, you are outnumbered and outgunned. Surrender now, and your civilians will be relocated safely to designated refugee worlds. Resistance will only increase casualties." You killed Dr. Sarah Chun. Captain Vasquez replied with ice in her voice. That was your first mistake. Your second was coming here, thinking we hadn't prepared for this day. She gestured to someone off-screen. Prometheus to all ships. Package Alpha is authorized. Show them what they're really fighting. The weapons that fired from the human ships existed in theoretical dimensions that the hegemony's shields weren't designed to block. Quantum tunneling torpedoes passed through physical barriers as if they didn't exist, delivering explosive yields directly to internal ship systems. Energy beams that operated on frequencies outside normal spacetime bypassed defensive screens entirely, cutting through hull armor like paper. In less than 30 seconds, the hegemony's overwhelming numerical advantage became meaningless. Half their fleet found their ships crippled by weapons that shouldn't exist, while the other half watched their shields fail against attacks that arrived from impossible directions. All ships, tactical withdrawal. Admiral Karoth ordered as his flagship's systems began failing around him. Emergency jump to rally point 7. But even retreat proved impossible. The human ships were somehow predicting hyperspace jump vectors, positioning themselves to intercept fleeing vessels before they could escape. The quantum displacement drives allowed them to exist in multiple locations simultaneously, making traditional escape routes useless. When the battle ended 3 hours later, the Darwin system remained in human hands. 230 hegemony warships had been captured or destroyed, while the human fleet reported minimal damage. The survivors who escaped carried reports that would shake the Hegemony Council to its core. Back on Earth, Admiral Reeves received the battle reports with grim satisfaction. The victory was total, but it came with a price. Package Alpha technologies have been revealed, meaning the hegemony would now devote their full scientific resources to understanding and countering human advantages. Ma'am, Commander Blake approached with intelligence updates. Deep cover assets report emergency sessions of the Hegemony Council. They're classifying humanity as a Class 1 existential threat. That's never been used before. Class 1 meant the Hegemony Council was prepared to commit their entire military might to destroying human civilization. It meant the end of limited warfare and the beginning of total galactic conflict. It meant that Sarah Chin's murder had triggered something that would reshape the entire galaxy. But in hidden facilities throughout human space, production lines hummed with increased activity. The technologies revealed at Darwin were just the beginning. Human scientists had spent decades developing weapons that existed in theoretical realms, powered by physics that alien civilizations couldn't comprehend. On New Geneva, Marcus Webb continued his work with the planet-wide consciousness that Sarah had died studying. The biological computer networks were already adapting to assist human research, processing calculations, and running simulations at quantum speeds. The alliance Sarah had discovered with her life was beginning to bear fruit. Colonel David Chun coordinated with resistance cells on 12 different worlds, organizing civilians and preparing defensive positions. His sister's death had awakened something in humanity that their enemies couldn't understand: the absolute refusal to accept defeat or limitation. The Hegemony Council had intended to teach humanity its place in the galactic order. Instead, they had triggered the rise of Earth's secret fleet and the birth of technologies that would make humans the dominant force in galactic civilization. The war was far from over, but the outcome was becoming clear. Sarah Chin's sacrifice would not be in vain. The galaxy would remember her name long after the last Hegemony Council ship had fallen to human weapons that turned impossibility into inevitability. The emergency session of the Hegemony High Council convened in the ancient chambers of Raxus Prime, their holographic forms flickering with barely controlled panic. For 3 millennia, the Council had maintained galactic order through calculated displays of overwhelming force. No species had ever survived their Class 7 containment protocols. Yet the reports from Darwin's system painted a picture of tactical impossibility. Explain to me how a species that achieved faster-than-light travel only 70 years ago has weapons that operate outside known physics, demanded Supreme Chancellor Thex, his 4 arms gesturing at the tactical displays with barely restrained fury. General Vex, his once confident demeanor now replaced with haunted confusion, struggled to provide answers that made sense. Our scientists estimate the human weapons utilize quantum tunneling effects at the macro scale. Theoretically possible, but requiring computational power that exceeds our most advanced systems by several orders of magnitude. Theoretically possible, repeated Counselor Zara from the Military Research Division. You're telling us that a species we classified as technologically inferior has achieved theoretical breakthroughs that have eluded our greatest minds for millennia? The silence that followed was heavy with implication. The hegemony's technological supremacy had been the foundation of galactic order since before most current species had achieved spaceflight. If humans could develop weapons that made hegemony shields useless, then everything the Council believed about their own superiority was built on illusion. There's more disturbing news, General Vex continued reluctantly. Our surviving ships from Darwin report that the human vessels appear to exist in multiple locations simultaneously during combat. Standard targeting protocols prove completely ineffective. Supreme Chancellor Vex's skin shifted from its normal pale blue to the deep purple that indicated extreme stress among his species. Are you suggesting they've weaponized quantum superposition? That's impossible. The energy requirements alone would destabilize local spacetime. Yet the evidence is undeniable, Vex replied. Their ships phase in and out of normal spacetime at will, making them effectively untouchable during repositioning. Our weapons simply pass through empty space where their ships appear to be. On Earth, Admiral Reeves studied the latest intelligence reports from hegemony space with cold satisfaction. The enemy's confidence had been shattered, but that made them infinitely more dangerous. Desperate civilizations were unpredictable, and the hegemony controlled enough firepower to sterilize every human world if they chose total war over tactical defeat. Package Beta is ready for deployment, reported Dr. Elizabeth Kane, the chief scientist of Project Deep Shield. The quantum consciousness interfaces have passed all simulation tests. We can begin installation on volunteer crews immediately. Package Beta represented the next evolution of human warfare capability. While Package Alpha had focused on weapons that operated outside normal physics, Beta involved linking human consciousness directly to quantum computing systems. Pilots would think at quantum speeds, processing tactical information and making decisions faster than traditional biological neural networks allowed. How many volunteers have we screened? Admiral Reeves asked, though she already suspected the answer would be more than they could use. Over 50,000 applications in the first week, Dr. Kane replied with a mixture of pride and sadness. Word has spread about what happened to Dr. Chun. Every military family in human space wants revenge. We're having to turn away qualified candidates because our facilities can't process them fast enough. The transformation of human military capability was accelerating beyond all projections. Sarah Chin's death had done more than trigger the secret fleet's activation. It had awakened something primal in human nature. The species that had evolved from persistence hunters refused to accept that their expansion could be arbitrarily limited by alien overlords. On New Geneva, Marcus Webb's research had reached a breakthrough that would have staggered even Sarah's brilliant mind. Working with the native Zephyrians, he had successfully interfaced human technology with the planet-wide biological consciousness network. The results exceeded every theoretical model. David, you need to get down here immediately. Marcus transmitted through their encrypted channel. The biological networks aren't just planet-wide. They're galactic. The quantum entanglement effects extend across the entire local group of star systems. Colonel David Chun arrived at the research station to find Marcus surrounded by holographic displays showing data streams that pulsed like living things. The information flow was unlike anything he had ever seen, patterns of communication that operated on principles beyond current human understanding. Marcus, what am I looking at? Proof that the galaxy is far more alive than we ever imagined. Marcus replied, his voice filled with wonder and growing excitement. The biological networks that Sarah died studying aren't isolated to individual worlds. They're interconnected across space through quantum effects we're only beginning to understand. The implications staggered both men as they studied the data. If biological consciousness networks existed throughout the galaxy, then the Hegemony Council's control was built on ignorance of the living systems they ruled. More importantly, those systems were already beginning to communicate with human technology in ways that could revolutionize space travel, communication, and warfare itself. Can we communicate with them? We already are. Marcus grinned with the expression Sarah would have recognized from their days as research partners. And they want to help us. The networks have been aware of the hegemony's suppression of younger species for millennia. They've been waiting for someone capable of fighting back. Meanwhile, in the depths of space near the Rigel system, the first test of package beta technology was about to begin. Captain Torres had volunteered for the consciousness interface procedure, allowing quantum computing systems to link directly with his neural pathways. The process was irreversible and potentially fatal, but the tactical advantages were beyond calculation. Neural link established, reported Dr. Kane from the medical bay of the UES Nightfall. Quantum processing centers are online. Captain, how do you feel? Torres tried to describe the sensation of thinking at quantum speeds and found human language inadequate. He could process tactical scenarios in microseconds, predict enemy movements based on quantum probability calculations, and perceive space-time itself as a navigable dimension. He was still human, but enhanced beyond biological limitations. Doctor, this is incredible. I can see tactical possibilities that extend across multiple timelines simultaneously. It's like having perfect strategic vision. His voice carried wonder and something approaching transcendence. The test began simply enough. A navigation exercise through an asteroid field that would normally require hours of careful plotting. With the quantum consciousness interface active, Torres completed the same exercise in minutes, his enhanced perception allowing him to calculate paths through space-time that avoided collisions across multiple probability streams. Package Beta is approved for fleet-wide deployment, Admiral Reeves decided after reviewing the test results. Begin installation procedures on volunteer crews immediately. Priority goes to ships assigned to deep strike missions. The transformation of human military capability was entering its final phase. Weapons that operated outside normal physics, consciousness enhanced to quantum processing speeds, and alliance with biological networks that span the galaxy. The Hegemony Council had awakened something in humanity that their 3-millennium reign had never encountered. Back on Vraxis Prime, the Council's emergency sessions had devolved into barely controlled panic. Reports from intelligence assets throughout human space painted a picture of technological development that accelerated beyond all reasonable models. Worse, their deep-cover operatives were disappearing, their quantum communication networks compromised by viruses that shouldn't be possible to create. The humans are adapting faster than our suppression protocols can compensate, reported Intelligence Director Corvin. Every tactic we deploy is countered within days by technologies that appear to violate fundamental physics. Supreme Chancellor Thex stared at the tactical displays, showing the true scope of human expansion. The public colonies were just the visible portion of a civilization that had been building hidden infrastructure for decades. Shipyards in uninhabitable systems, research facilities in the void between stars, weapons testing ranges and dimensions that existed parallel to normal space. How do we miss this level of development, he demanded. Because they hid it deliberately, General Vex answered with grudging respect. While we monitored their public expansion, they were building a shadow civilization designed specifically to counter our containment protocols. They've been preparing for this war longer than we realized. The most disturbing reports came from the outer territories, where hegemony patrol fleets had begun encountering human ships that seemed to predict their movements before they made them. Ships appeared from nowhere, struck with weapons that bypassed all known defenses, and vanished back into whatever dimension they used for tactical movement. Sir, reported Communications Officer Vale, we're receiving surrender demand from the human fleet commander. Admiral Reeves is demanding immediate withdrawal of all hegemony forces from human space and recognition of human sovereignty throughout the local galactic arm. The audacity of the demand would have been amusing if not for the tactical realities that supported it. In 3 months of warfare, The hegemony had lost over 1,000 ships while inflicting minimal damage on human forces. Their technological advantages had proven worthless against weapons that operated on principles they couldn't understand. What are our options? Supreme Chancellor Thex asked his military advisors. Total war or negotiated withdrawal, General Vex replied bluntly. We can commit our entire fleet to destroying every human world, but the cost would be thousands of ships and millions of casualties. And there's no guarantee of success against their quantum weapons. On Earth, Admiral Reeves prepared for what she hoped would be the final phase of the conflict. The secret fleet had grown to over 300 vessels, each equipped with package alpha weapons and package beta consciousness interfaces. More importantly, the alliance with galactic biological networks had provided tactical intelligence that made traditional military planning obsolete. Sarah Chen's death had triggered humanity's rise from a contained species to the galaxy's newest superpower. The brilliant young scientist who had died studying plant consciousness had become the catalyst for technologies that would reshape galactic civilization. Her sacrifice was about to bear fruit beyond anything she could have imagined. The war was entering its final phase, but the outcome was no longer in doubt. The galaxy would learn that humanity didn't just adapt to challenges, they transcended them entirely. The final confrontation began not with the clash of fleets, but with a message broadcast across every communication frequency in known space. Admiral Catherine Reeves appeared on screens throughout the galaxy, her weathered face carrying the authority of someone who had spent decades preparing for this moment. To the peoples of the galaxy, she began, her voice reaching billions of beings across thousands of worlds, humanity stands at a crossroads. 3 months ago, the Hegemony Council murdered Dr. Sarah Chun, a brilliant young scientist whose only crime was discovering that life exists in forms they couldn't control. Today, we end their reign of suppression forever. The broadcast continued for exactly 7 minutes, laying out humanity's demands in terms that left no room for misinterpretation. The Hegemony Council would dissolve itself and transfer governing authority to a new confederation of species. All suppression protocols would be immediately suspended. Species previously classified as contained would be granted full sovereignty and technological assistance to reach their potential. The galaxy has lived under artificial limitations for too long, Admiral Reeves concluded. The age of enforced stagnation ends today. Humanity offers partnership to those who seek growth and overwhelming force to those who cling to the old order. On Vraxis Prime, Supreme Chancellor Thex watched the broadcast with the dawning realization that his civilization's 3 millennia reign was ending. The human demands weren't negotiable terms. They were the declaration of a new galactic order backed by weapons that made resistance futile. Sir, General Vex reported with unconcealed defeat. Our deep space monitoring stations are detecting massive quantum displacement signatures throughout human space. They're mobilizing their entire fleet. The tactical displays showed a sight that would have been impossible just months earlier. Over 1,000 human vessels materialized from dimensional phase space in perfect formation, surrounding every major hegemony stronghold simultaneously. The quantum displacement drives that had once seemed like theoretical impossibility were now deployed on a scale that dwarfed traditional fleet movements. More disturbing were the energy readings from the human ships. The quantum consciousness interfaces had allowed their crews to link their vessels into a single coordinated intelligence that processed tactical information at speeds beyond biological comprehension. The human fleet wasn't just numerically superior. It was functionally omniscient within its operational area. How many ships are we facing? Chancellor Thex asked, though he suspected the question itself was meaningless against an enemy that could exist in multiple locations simultaneously. Impossible to determine accurately, Vex admitted. The quantum displacement technology allows them to appear in thousands of locations while using only hundreds of vessels. Our targeting systems can't distinguish between actual ships and quantum echoes. On the UES Prometheus, Captain Elena Vasquez felt her consciousness expanding through the ship's quantum networks as package beta systems linked her mind with the vessel's computational matrix. She could perceive tactical possibilities across multiple timelines, predict enemy movements before they were made, and coordinate with other enhanced crews through direct neural connection. All ships report ready for final phase deployment, she announced through the quantum communication network that linked the entire human fleet. Package Omega is standing by for activation on Admiral Reeves' command. Package Omega represented the culmination of humanity's theoretical weapons research, where Package Alpha had weaponized quantum tunneling and Package Beta had enhanced human consciousness. Omega involved direct manipulation of space-time itself. The weapons could literally edit enemy ships out of existence by severing their connection to the quantum foundations of reality. But the true scope of human preparation was only beginning to reveal itself. In star systems throughout the galaxy, hidden installations that had been dormant for decades suddenly blazed to life. The biological consciousness networks that Marcus Webb had studied weren't just communication systems. They were construction matrices capable of growing ships and weapons from base matter using principles that made traditional manufacturing obsolete. On New Geneva, Marcus stood beside Colonel David Chun as they watched the planet-wide network respond to signals from Earth's Fleet Command. Crystalline formations erupted from the ground in perfect geometric patterns, growing at impossible speeds as the biological consciousness transformed raw minerals into advanced technology. Sarah would have been amazed, Marcus whispered as he watched new ships literally grow from the planet's living systems. She discovered the key to partnership with galactic intelligence itself. David nodded, his grief for his sister now tempered by pride in what her sacrifice had accomplished. She always said that understanding was more powerful than force. Turns out she was right in ways none of us imagined. The ships that emerged from the biological networks weren't constructed in the traditional sense. They were grown, their hulls and systems integrated with the same quantum consciousness that spanned the galaxy. Each vessel was simultaneously biological and technological, capable of self-repair, adaptation, and evolution in real time. Back on Earth, Admiral Reeves received reports from across human space that painted a picture of capabilities that exceeded even her most optimistic projections. The secret fleet had grown from hundreds to thousands of vessels in a matter of hours, with more ships emerging from biological networks throughout the galaxy. Package Omega is ready for deployment, Dr. Kane reported from Deep Shield's primary research facility. The space-time manipulation systems have passed all safety protocols. We can begin reality editing operations immediately. Admiral Reeves stared at the tactical displays, showing the true scope of the confrontation. The Hegemony Council still commanded thousands of ships and millions of personnel, but their technological foundation had been rendered obsolete by weapons that operated outside their understanding of physics. Signal all fleet commanders, she decided. Commence Operation Final Truth. It's time the galaxy saw what human ingenuity can accomplish when properly motivated. The attack began simultaneously across 17 star systems as human ships materialized around hegemony strongholds like digital ghosts becoming solid. But instead of the expected violence, something unprecedented occurred. The human vessels simply began broadcasting. The transmissions weren't communications in any traditional sense. They were direct downloads of information that bypassed normal cognitive processing, implanting knowledge directly into the consciousness of every being within range. Hegemony personnel found themselves suddenly understanding the true history of galactic civilization, the suppression protocols that had kept species from reaching their potential, and the technologies that could transform their worlds into paradises. On Vraxis Prime, Supreme Chancellor Thex felt his worldview collapsing as the human information downloads revealed the extent of his civilization's crimes. For 3 millennia, the hegemony had systematically suppressed technological development, destroyed promising species, and maintained artificial scarcity to preserve their control. The weight of genocide on an unimaginable scale settled on his consciousness like a crushing burden. Sir, General Vex reported with a voice heavy with new understanding. Our personnel are laying down arms across all theaters. The information downloads, they show us what we really are. The revolution was bloodless because it was educational. Beings throughout the galaxy suddenly understood that the limitations they had accepted as natural law were artificial constructs maintained by those who benefited from stagnation. The hegemony's military might evaporated as their own forces realized they had been enforcing slavery disguised as order. But the true revelation came when the human ships began demonstrating the technologies they had developed in secret. Barren worlds bloomed with life as terraforming systems that worked in harmony with biological consciousness transformed dead rock into living ecosystems. Quantum manufacturing systems converted base matter into anything needed by local populations, ending scarcity forever. Most important were the educational networks that began spreading through space like living light. The consciousness interfaces that humans had developed allowed direct transfer of knowledge and skill, meaning any being could master technologies that had previously required generations of study. The galaxy was witnessing the birth of universal enlightenment. On New Geneva, Marcus Webb stood in the grove where Sarah Chun had died, but now the crystalline formations hummed with new purpose. The biological consciousness that she had died studying was teaching human children how to communicate across space-time, while alien visitors learned to interface with living quantum computers that could answer any question. She did it, David Chun said softly as he watched human and alien children playing games that involved manipulating matter at the molecular level. Sarah found the key to transcendence. The war that had begun with one young scientist's murder had ended with the transformation of galactic civilization itself. The Hegemony Council formally dissolved within hours of the first information downloads, their personnel joining the rapidly expanding confederation of enlightened species the humans were organizing. Admiral Reeves stood on the observation deck of Earth Station Alpha, watching as ships from 100 different worlds arrived to join humanity's growing alliance. The secret fleet that had been built to protect human expansion had become the foundation of galactic renaissance. Admiral, Commander Blake approached with the final status reports. The last hegemony stronghold has requested integration into the Confederation. Total casualties for the entire war, 0. It was unprecedented in galactic history. A complete change of civilization accomplished through education rather than destruction, transformation rather than conquest. Sarah Chin's research into biological consciousness had become the foundation for a new age where every species could reach its full potential. Years later, when historians tried to understand how humanity had achieved the impossible, they would point to a simple truth that the Hegemony Council had never understood. Humans didn't just adapt to challenges. They turned obstacles into opportunities for transcendence. The murder of one brilliant young scientist had triggered the rise of technologies that made gods out of ordinary beings. The galaxy that had once been controlled by artificial limitations was now a place where any dream could become reality through the merger of consciousness and quantum physics. And at the heart of it all was a grove of crystalline formations on a distant world, where Dr. Sarah Chin's memorial stood as a reminder that sometimes the greatest victories begin with the greatest losses. The stars themselves seemed brighter in the new age, as if the universe itself approved of the choice to embrace possibility over limitation, growth over stagnation, and hope over fear. Humanity had kept its promise to remember Sarah Chin's sacrifice, transforming her death into the birth of galactic enlightenment itself.